Adaku was the pride of her village, gentle, beautiful, and full of life. When Tunde, a wealthy and respected man, asked to marry her, everyone celebrated. "You are lucky," they told her. "A man like Tunde will give you a good life." Only her mother, Mofe, seemed uneasy. "Marriage is not just about wealth, my daughter," she whispered. But Adaku, blinded by love and village pressure, believed she was stepping into a fairy tale. The wedding was grand. Drums echoed, women danced, and men praised Tunde for choosing such a fine wife. Adaku's heart swelled with hope, but as the celebrations faded and night fell, her dream became a nightmare. In the dim candlelight of their new home, Adaku nervously approached Tunde, expecting warmth. Instead, his eyes were cold, his face twisted with irritation. She had accidentally spilled a little water serving him. Before she could apologize, his hand struck her face. The sting shocked her. "A wife must be perfect," he hissed angrily. "Do not embarrass me again." Adaku clutched her burning cheek. Was this the man who smiled at her wedding? Tears welled, but she swallowed them, convincing herself it was a mistake. It wouldn't happen again. The next morning, she ran to her mother. Mof's face darkened, seeing the faint bruise. "Leave him, Adaku," she urged, gripping her hands. "A man who raises his hand once will do it again." But the elders and village women disagreed. "Marriage is not easy," they told her. "You must endure. A good wife does not run at the first sign of trouble." Adaku looked at the faces around her, some pitying, others indifferent. The weight of tradition pressed down. She didn't want to disappoint her family or bring shame, so she wiped her tears, forced a smile, and returned to Tunde's house, hoping love would soften his hands. The wedding was grand. Drums echoed, women danced, and men praised Tunde for choosing such a fine wife. Adaku's heart swelled with hope, but as the celebrations faded and night fell, her dream became a nightmare. In the dim candlelight of their new home, Adaku nervously approached Tunde, expecting warmth. Instead, his eyes were cold, his face twisted with irritation. She had accidentally spilled a little water serving him. Before she could apologize, his hand struck her face. The sting shocked her. "A wife must be perfect," he hissed angrily. "Do not embarrass me again." Adaku clutched her burning cheek. Was this the man who smiled at her wedding? Tears welled, but she swallowed them, convincing herself it was a mistake. It wouldn't happen again. The next morning, she ran to her mother. Mof's face darkened, seeing the faint bruise. "Leave him, Adaku," she urged, gripping her hands. "A man who raises his hand once will do it again." But the elders and village women disagreed. "Marriage is not easy," they told her. "You must endure. A good wife does not run at the first sign of trouble." Adaku looked at the faces around her, some pitying, others indifferent. The weight of tradition pressed down. She didn't want to disappoint her family or bring shame, so she wiped her tears, forced a smile, and returned to Tunde's house, hoping love would soften his hands. She was wrong. The slap on her wedding night was just the beginning. At first, Adaku thought she could change him. She believed if she was careful enough, spoke softly, did everything perfectly, Tunde would stop hitting her. But she soon learned it didn't matter what she did. The beatings came anyway. Some nights because the food wasn't warm enough. Other nights because he had a bad day at the market. Sometimes for no reason at all. His anger was a storm, and she was caught in it, helpless and alone. She learned to recognize the signs, his jaw tightening, his fingers curling into fists, his voice dropping to a deadly whisper before the first slap. Some nights he hit her once and stopped. Other nights he wouldn't stop until she could barely move. The worst was when he would strike her and then hold her close, whispering, "See what you make me do? If only you listened. If only you were a better wife." Adaku tried to hide the bruises. She became an expert at tying her headscarf just right, keeping her face turned away. But the pain couldn't be hidden forever. One afternoon, fetching water, she saw her childhood friend, Juba. He had always protected her. When he saw the marks on her arms, his smile vanished. "Adaku," he said, full of worry, "what is happening to you?" She opened her mouth to lie, but the truth spilled out. "Tunde, he hurts me." Her voice cracked. Tears finally fell. Juba clenched his fists. "Come with me." "You cannot stay with him." But Adaku shook her head. "Where will I go?" "The village will not accept me if I leave my husband." Juba's face was angry. but he knew she was right. No woman who left her husband was welcome back. A wife belonged to her husband no matter what. Still, he refused to let her suffer alone. "I will speak to the elder," he said firmly. "They must help you." Adaku felt a spark of hope as they went to the chief's hut. Chief Kwame, old and stern, listened silently as Juba spoke. When Juba finished, there was a long pause. Then the chief sighed. "A woman's duty is to obey her husband," he said heavily. "Marriage is not easy. Endurance is a woman's strength." Adaku's heart sank. She knew this would be the answer, but hearing it crushed her spirit. Juba's face was red with fury. "So you will do nothing?" he demanded. Chief Kwame's gaze was cold. "What do you expect? To take her from her husband and shame his household? Do not bring this matter here again." Adaku felt numb walking away. The message was clear. No one would save her. She was alone. That night, lying on the cold floor, her body aching from another beating, she finally understood. If she wanted to survive, she couldn't rely on anyone. She had to find her own way out. The night the village would never forget began normally. The sky was heavy with dark clouds. The air smelled of rain. Thunder rumbled as wind howled through the trees, whispering secrets. Inside Tunde's hut, Adaku lay curled on the cold floor, trembling. Tonight had been worse. Tunde returned furious after losing money in the market, and she paid the price. He threw her down, kicked her ribs, and yanked her hair until her scalp felt torn. "You are useless," he spat. "A wife who cannot even bring her husband good luck. What did I do to deserve such bad fortune?" Adaku didn't respond. Speaking made things worse. She shut her eyes, pretending she wasn't there, imagining another life far away. When the storm broke, rain poured down. Tunde, satisfied, collapsed into bed and fell into a deep sleep, his snores mixing with the storm. The room was dark, but Adaku's eyes were open. Her body ached, but her mind was sharp. This was the moment. Slowly, painfully, she pushed herself up, biting her lip to stay quiet. Step by step, she made her way to the door, her heart pounding. With shaking hands, she lifted the wooden latch and stepped outside. The rain hit her like a cold slap, soaking her instantly. She didn't care. She took a deep breath of freedom. For the first time in years, she was outside without permission, without fear. She looked around. She couldn't go to her mother. The village wouldn't protect her. To escape, she had to leave everything behind. Her feet moved on their own, carrying her toward the forest. Trees swayed wildly, branches stretching like arms welcoming her into the shadows. She ran, ignoring the pain, ignoring the cuts on her bare feet. She ran as if the wind pushed her forward. Then suddenly she stopped. A sound, a presence. Something watched her. She turned, her breath catching, but there was nothing, just rain, trees, and endless darkness ahead. Without thinking, she took one more step and vanished. The next morning, the village awoke to chaos. Tunde stumbled out, confused and angry. His wife was gone. He thought she'd gone for water, but when she didn't return, confusion turned to rage. He searched the house, calling her name. Then he saw footprints in the wet earth, leading toward the forest. The village gathered as word spread. Women whispered fearfully. Men shook their heads about spirits and curses. A search party formed. They followed the footprints deep into the trees until the tracks simply stopped. No sign of struggle, no animal attack, no sign of where she went. It was as if the earth swallowed her whole. A shiver ran through the crowd. The elders exchanged uneasy glances. "Did she run away?" someone asked. "Did something take her?" another whispered. No one had an answer. For the first time, Tunde felt something unknown. Fear. At first, Tunde refused to believe it. Adaku probably ran away, hiding in another village, he told himself. But as days passed and no one found her, unease settled in his chest. He didn't want to admit it, but something felt wrong. Then the whispers began. At night, lying in his empty hut, he'd hear her voice, soft at first like a breeze through the walls. "Tunde?" His eyes snapped open, his heart pounded. He'd stare into darkness, waiting. But there was nothing, just wind and frogs. He told himself it was his imagination, guilt playing tricks. But deep down, he knew. Adaku's spirit had not left him. The villagers had theories. Some thought she escaped. Others whispered something terrifying. The forest spirits took her for revenge. No woman disappears like that, the elders murmured. The gods must have seen her pain. Rumors spread. Soon people avoided Tunde. Traders kept their distance. Women whispered behind hands, children hid behind mothers. Then his misfortune truly began. One morning he found his market stall destroyed, his goods, yams, grains, palm oil, ruined by rain. He demanded answers from the market chief. "The spirits are not happy with you, Tunde," the man said. "Your wife's cries reach them." Tunde scoffed, refusing to believe nonsense. But troubles continued. A week later, his employer at the cocoa farm called him aside. "Tunde, I can't keep you anymore," the man said, avoiding his gaze. "Your presence brings bad luck." Tunde was furious. Bad luck? Because of foolish gossip? But the man only sighed. "The villagers are afraid. I cannot take the risk." Just like that, Tunde lost his job. His wealth slipped away. His farm fell to disease. His goats grew weak and died mysteriously. Even friends stayed away. At night, whispers grew louder. "Tunde?" One evening, as he sat drinking palm wine, a gust of wind chilled his skin. The hairs on his arms stood up. Then he heard it clearly again. "Why, Tunde?" He spun around, heart slamming. The courtyard was empty. Trees swayed gently. Nothing moved. Hands trembling, he stumbled back inside, locked the door, pressed against it, breathing ragged, sweating. For the first time, he was afraid of the dark. Nights became unbearable. Tunde barely slept. Every time he closed his eyes, soft footsteps, rustling leaves without wind, breathing in the darkness. He told himself it was stress, imagination. But he knew better. Then one night he saw it. The moon was full. Tunde sat outside drinking, trying to drown fear. Exhausted, weak, he noticed a shadow near the trees. At first a trick of moonlight, but it moved slowly, purposefully, watching him. A chill ran down his spine. "Who's there?" he called, voice cracking. No answer. The figure remained. He grabbed a burning stick, stepped forward. The moment he moved, the shadow vanished like smoke. Shaking, he stumbled back, locked the door, heart pounding. He told himself it was imagination. Then nightmares started. Every night he dreamed of Adaku, her bruised face staring, eyes hollow and unnatural. She stood at the foot of his bed, whispering, "Tunde? Why?" He woke gasping, drenched in sweat, his room smelling of wet earth and rot. Then his food spoiled. Fresh yams turned black when he touched them. Water in his calabash turned to sludge overnight. Market meat rotted before he could cook it. His cattle, once strong, grew weak, eyes dull, bodies shrinking to skin and bones. One by one, they collapsed, lifeless warnings across his farm. Desperate to escape misfortune, Tunde did what any selfish man would do. He took another wife. Her name was Ifeoma, a young woman from a neighboring village. He thought marrying her would bring luck, erase the past. But Ifeoma didn't last long. Days after moving in, she began seeing the shadow. At first she ignored it, but one night she woke screaming, eyes wild. "She's here! She's here!" she cried, pointing to the doorway. Tunde saw nothing, but her fear told him she had. The next morning she was gone, leaving everything behind. Clothes, jewelry, shoes, running barefoot to her father's house. She refused to speak, her face pale with terror. Now Tunde was truly alone. Then one evening, exhausted and hollow-eyed, he saw them. Claw marks, deep, jagged scratches carved into his wooden door. His blood turned cold. They weren't there before. He traced the rough edges with trembling fingers. They were fresh, as if sharp nails dragged across the wood in the night. Tunde swallowed hard. For the first time he realized this wasn't guilt or bad luck. Something had returned for him. Far beyond the village, where thick forests gave way to a hidden valley, lived an old hermit named Baba Obi. Villagers spoke of him in hushed tones, a man of mystery. Some said a healer, others swore he had powers beyond understanding. Few had seen him. Those who did never dared speak of it. It was there, in this forbidden valley, that Adaku opened her eyes. Her body screamed with pain, vision blurred, skin covered in bruises and dried blood. The last thing she remembered, running, bare feet pounding wet earth, thunder roaring, then darkness. "You are safe now," a deep, soothing voice murmured. Adaku blinked, seeing the old man beside her. His face was carved with wisdom lines, eyes sharp. He held a wooden bowl with thick, bitter-smelling liquid. "Drink," he said, pressing it to her lips. She hesitated, learned not to trust, but his gaze felt safe. Weakly she sipped, wincing. Warmth spread, numbing pain. Days turned into weeks. Baba Obi nursed her back to health, tending wounds with unseen herbs, feeding her, clothing her, teaching her the land's ways. But he was more than a healer. He was a teacher, a guide who saw the fire in her soul. "You have suffered," he said one evening by the fire, "but suffering does not make you weak. It is the forge that will shape you into something stronger." Adaku listened, heart heavy with memories of Tunde's fists, cruel words, the village ignoring her cries. "I never want to feel weak again," she whispered. Baba Obi nodded. "Then you must learn." So she trained. At dawn, she ran barefoot through the valley, lungs burning, muscles screaming. By midday, she climbed the tallest trees, balancing on thin branches, hands growing rough and strong. Baba Obi taught her to fight, not with brute strength, but with precision. "A snake does not attack wildly," he said. "It waits. It strikes when the time is right." She learned the art of silence, patience, watching without being seen. She studied herbs' power, not just to heal, but to weaken, confuse, make a man see ghosts in the dark. The Adaku who stumbled into the valley was gone. In her place stood a woman of quiet strength. Her scars were no longer marks of pain, but symbols of survival. Yet one thing remained, vengeance. She didn't seek it in rage. Rage was wild. She sought it with the patience of a gathering storm, slow, steady, inevitable. One night, standing at the valley's edge, looking toward her former village, she finally spoke words burning in her soul. "I am coming, Tunde." The night was thick with silence. Tunde sat in his hut, staring at dying lantern flames. His face was hollow, eyes sunken from sleepless nights. His life had crumbled, wealth gone, cattle dead, new wife fled. But none compared to the fear gnawing his bones. Something was coming for him. Then it happened. A knock. Slow, deliberate. Tap, 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 against the wooden door. His body stiffened. No visitors at this hour. Not when the village feared him. He swallowed hard. "Who's there?" Silence. Then laughter. A woman's laughter. Low and haunting. Drifting through the night like a ghost whisper. It curled around him, sending shivers up his spine. His throat went dry, hands clammy. He knew that laugh. Impossible. Grabbing a lantern, he crept to the door, fingers trembling as he unlatched and pulled it open. There she stood. Adaku, but not the broken woman he left bleeding on the floor. This woman was different. Tall, posture unshaken, dark eyes piercing his soul. She wore a warrior's cloak draped over her shoulders like she was born to wear it. Her skin, once bruised, glowed in the moonlight. Tunde stumbled back, breath catching. "No! No! You're dead! You vanished!" Adaku stepped forward, gaze locked on his. "I did not vanish, Tunde," her voice calm yet powerful. "I was reborn." Behind her, standing tall like a shadow of judgment, was Baba Obi, his face unreadable, presence like a waiting storm. Tunde's knees weakened, his heart pounded violently. This was real. For the first time, he felt powerless. The village square was packed, air thick with murmurs of shock. Word spread. Adaku had returned with the truth. Tunde stood rigid in the center, face pale, eyes darting for escape. The entire village gathered, elders seated in a semicircle, expressions grim. Chief Kwame sat at the center. Adaku stood opposite Tunde, posture straight, eyes unflinching. The warrior's cloak made her look like a queen. Baba Obi stood behind her, an unshakable force. Chief Kwame cleared his throat. "Adaku, you have returned after many moons. Tell us why you called this gathering." Adaku stepped forward, voice firm. I have come to speak the truth, to reveal what was hidden too long. She turned to the crowd. For years I suffered in silence. Tunde, the man you respected, was not the husband you believed. Every night behind closed doors, he beat me, cursed me, broke my bones and spirit. And when I cried for help, no one listened. Gasps rippled. Some covered mouths, others exchanged guilty glances. Tunde scoffed, forcing a laugh. Lies, she is mad. Why would I? Adaku raised a hand, silencing him. You will not speak, Tunde. The truth no longer hides in the shadows. A voice from the crowd spoke. She is not lying. Heads turned. Nia, a widow, stepped forward, eyes sorrowful and angry. He did the same to my sister before she died. Another voice. He beat my cousin too. And another. He stole from the weak, threatened those who couldn't fight back. One by one, women, men, even elders spoke. Stories poured out. Tales of cruelty, violence, fear. The truth unraveled before the entire village. Chief Kwame's face darkened. Tunde, you have betrayed the village's trust. You harmed the innocent and hid behind power. There is no place for such evil here. Tunde fell to his knees. Please, I beg. The time for begging is over, Chief Kwame declared. The elders murmured, then the chief rose. You are stripped of your land, your title, and your home. From this moment, you are banished to the forest. The spirits and beasts shall decide your fate. Tunde's face drained of color. The forest, where whispers of the dead roamed, where no man returned alive. Guards grabbed his arms. He thrashed, screamed, begged. But the village turned their backs. As they dragged him toward the wilderness, he looked up one last time. Adaku stood tall, unshaken. Her eyes held no hatred, only the power of a woman who reclaimed her life. Tunde was swallowed by the trees, never seen again. Tunde staggered through the dense forest, clothes torn, feet bruised, weak body, worse mind. The wilderness was silent, yet he was never alone. The villagers ignored him. No food, no pity. He was invisible, just as he made Adaku feel. Days passed, hunger ached, throat dry. Night shadows twisted into frightening shapes. Worst was the voice, her voice. Soft at first, a whisper on the wind. Tunde? He froze, breath catching, eyes darting. Tunde! There again. Adaku's voice, yet otherworldly. He stumbled back, tripped over a root, fell on cold, damp ground. Whispers turned to laughter, the same eerie laugh haunting him since her return. Who's there? He screamed. Trees swayed without wind, leaves rustled without movement. He turned in circles, heart hammering, breath shallow. Then from the corner of his eye, a shadow, tall, standing between trees, unmoving but watching. He felt eyes burning his soul. Stay away from me, he choked out, stumbling back. Laughter grew louder. The shadow felt closer. Whispers returned, not just Adaku's voice, many voices. Women crying, screaming, whispering his name like a curse. Tunde clutched his ears, shaking violently. No, no, I'm sorry, he cried. Please, forgive me. The voices didn't stop. Shadows multiplied, air colder, ground sinking, swallowing his feet. Then the final whisper came, soft, gentle, filled with justice. Now you know how it feels. Tunde gasped. The forest swallowed his scream. He vanished. No one ever saw him again. Adaku stood at the village edge, watching the sunrise paint the sky gold. The air felt different, lighter, freer. The weight of fear was gone. She was reborn. Villagers looked at her with respect, not pity, whispering her name with awe. Women once afraid now found voices. Men who turned their backs now stood for justice. Everything changed. It started with a young girl coming to her hut, eyes wide with fear, arms bruised. She had nowhere else to go. Adaku knelt, gently taking her hands, whispering, "You are safe now." Then came another, and another. Women from the village and beyond came for healing, guidance, strength. Some beaten, some abandoned, some hopeless. Adaku gave hope back. She learned healing from Baba Obi, mixing herbs with wisdom, turning pain to power. But she wasn't just a healer of wounds. She was a healer of souls. She taught women to fight, stand tall, never bow to cruelty. She became their protector. The village that once ignored suffering now refused it. Elders who excused abuse enforced new laws. A man who raised his hand against his wife faced justice. No woman would be told to endure. No mother would beg for her daughter's safety. Adaku's name spread beyond the village. Travelers spoke her story: suffering, survival, justice, reaching kings and commoners. Women from distant lands sought her wisdom. Men learned to fear karma's wrath. Adaku, the woman who once cried alone at night, became a legend, a symbol of strength, a name never forgotten.